Today we'll be discussing parody, a humorous imitation of another writer's work. However, parody extends beyond just the written word. We see parody in film, television, and even commercials. Parody follows the form of the original text or story, but also might put a twist on the story and use a different form. An example of this can be seen in Cervantes's Don Quixote, which is arguably the first modern novel ever written. The story follows the noble Don Alonso, who reads so many stories about knights in shining armor and their adventures that he decides to set off and have a few of his own. While the story follows the format of a knight going on quests, the results are actually quite humorous. An example of this can be seen in one of the most famous moments from the novel, in which Don Quixote sees what he believes are giants off in the distance. What Don Quixote fails to realize is that his eyes are playing tricks on him, and the giants are in fact windmills. He engages the giants in combat with disastrous, or perhaps hilarious, results. Today you might hear the expression tilting at windmills, meaning to fight imaginary enemies. That comes straight from this story. Parody can also tell the story from a different character's point of view. Perhaps you've read the kids' book, The True Story of the Three Little Pigs, which retells the fairy tale from the perspective of the wolf. In this parody, the wolf claims that he's not a bloodthirsty monster, but instead was simply looking to borrow some sugar from each one of the pigs, had a sneezing attack, and accidentally blew down the house. Weird Al Yankovic has made a career of recording parody versions of famous songs. Some of his hits include a cover of Chameleonaire's Ridin' Dirty, White and Nerdy, Michael Jackson's Beat It, Eat It, and of course Robin Thicke's Blurred Lines, Word Crimes. Some film examples of parody include Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery, which pokes fun at the spy genre, including the James Bond franchise, Spaceballs, which mainly takes aim at the Star Wars films, and of course Shaun of the Dead, which is a parody of the zombie genre. If you've ever watched Saturday Night Live, you've seen a parody version of the President of the United States. In fact, the show has been lampooning our commanders-in-chief for over 40 years. So in what way is the Apple of Discord Eye a parody? Well, the writer tells the story from the viewpoint of Eris. She makes fun of the gods and goddesses, minimizing her own actions and saying that if they weren't so hard-headed, the war would not have happened. The language conveys childishness, pettiness, and immaturity in the goddesses. Let's move into our Analyze the Text section for the Apple of Discord Eye on page 334. Number 1. Infer. Reread lines 1 through 7. Eris describes herself as one of the lesser immortals. What phrase does she use to describe the three goddesses? Tell why this description is humorous. Eris calls the three goddesses lofty Olympians. The double meaning of lofty and lofty Olympians points out that gods live on high and that they think they are better than lesser goddesses like Eris. Number 2. Interpret. Reread lines 19 through 26. What words and phrases does Eris use to describe the three goddesses and their behavior? Explain what these word choices tell you about what she thinks of them and how she sees herself. Words and phrases like commotion, weren't they embarrassed, and squabble show that Eris finds the goddesses and their behavior ridiculous. They are also intended to show that she herself would never behave in such a lowly manner. Number 3. Analyze. Compare Eris's word choices in lines 1 through 27 with those in lines 28 through 40. As the poem progresses, how does Eris's tone change? Tell what language choices contribute to the change in tone. In the first part of the poem, Eris uses words such as embarrassed, squabble, tugging, and pulling. Her tone is mocking. In the second part, Eris's tone is harsh and critical, with descriptions like the horrors at Troy, they who destroy, who sacrifice heroes, and to their lasting shame. Number 4. Infer. Review lines 1 through 40 of The Apple of Discord Eye. What is the theme or message about life of the poem? What repeated statements help you infer the theme? The theme is that the gods and goddesses should not use humans to settle their disputes. The repeated statements of the gods are hard-headed, they never learn, support the theme. Number 5, compare. A symbol is a person, place, or thing that stands for something else. In this poem, and in Black Ships Before Troy, what is the symbol and what does it stand for? Do you think that the symbolic meaning is the same or different in the two texts? Cite evidence from both texts to support your ideas. In both texts, the apple stands for how disagreement over a small, unimportant thing can lead to great conflict. In the myth, the apple is described as a small thing, and the plot events show how it led to long-lasting battles and destruction. In the poem, Eris describes how the commotion caused by the apple led to the destruction of Troy and Earth's glorious sons. And number 6, compare and contrast. Review lines 1 through 94 of Black Ships Before Troy. Compare how the events in the myth are described with Eris's description of events in the Apple of Discord Eye. How are the descriptions alike? How are they different? In the myth, Eris tosses the golden apple on a table. In the poem, she throws the apple on the grass. In the myth, the apple is inscribed with the words "to the fairest." In the poem, it is inscribed with the words "for the fairest." In both the myth and the poem, the goddesses fight over the apple, but in the myth, Eris is not mentioned after the wedding. Well, that does it for today, gentlemen. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I hope you're all doing well, and I'll see you tomorrow.